appear to have disappeared.
Did disappear. Okay, there we go. All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another stream, another episode. My first time hosting this season. Welcome aboard. Happy to be here. Thanks for joining the ANC duo, the Anand and Conrad duo. My name is Anand, and Conrad joined along me. Just want to make sure first, Conrad. Just want to say hi to the audience if you don't mind, just to see if everybody is picking up your audio.
Oh, I hit the wrong button there. Hi guys, nice to be back after a decision to not do a stream yesterday because we uh we had some other event happening in Canada that a lot of people were tuned into. So good to see you back after that decision, folks.
Conrad, I decided to become a baseball fan. I don't know if I told you that yet, but I started watching since game three, where that went to 18th inning, that game, and then ever since been invested into baseball. So Matsy says we both are loud and clear, so that's fantastic. So good job for me on the technical side. Good job to you as well, Conrad. Thanks for jumping in this evening. But we'll talk about
Yeah,
a
no
little
problem.
baseball maybe in the open segment. But the Flames surprisingly skate to a win, their first win in the regular season on this road trip after a four-game road trip, and now they head back home on Tuesday. Maybe just a small preliminary thoughts, if I can speak, uh, before on the game, and then we'll go with the talking points we have for today.
Yeah, and I don't think you're overly happy if you're the Flames on the results of this road swing. Obviously, only picking one game on your four-game Western tour, but for you to come home after getting just your third win on the season, I think this Calgary Flames squad has a lot to build on. Whether that's Dustin Wolf maybe breaking out of what many are calling a sophomore slump in this last game, whether that's Jonathan Huberdeau deciding he wants to be a goal scorer again, apparently today. Um, but there's a lot of good things this Calgary Flames roster can take back after a win after what we have to really consider a subpar road trip overall.
Yes, up a road trip. So that's, I believe, they lost in Nashville yesterday. They lost in Ottawa, and then they lost an overtime in Toronto, and then just a one regulation win. So that's like one, two, one, something like that. I forgot to calculate the
Yeah,
number.
one, two, and one. Yeah, it's getting 3 points out of a possible eight isn't exactly where you want to be, considering you faced off against the Maple Leafs, who are in their own tailspin after losing Mitch Marner. A Senators team that can't stop a beach ball until it's faced off against the Flames, and then a middle of the road Predators team. But obviously, I'll talk as part of Team Tank probably for the rest of this year. If your goal is like most of us, like myself and Tokay, seem to think day by day that the goal for this team needs to be putting them in the best odds for Gavin McKenna, you're probably okay with this road trip. It was entertaining games, goals were scored, and it wasn't the worst hockey to watch over the last two games.
Maybe today was a little boring, but I agree. The last two was last three were
I think
enter-
I only think it's boring because these are two basement dweller teams. I think the Flyers are starting to see their come up becoming more real now that they've ditched John Tortorella. Um, so they're on the right track. Where the Flames, if it depends on what vantage point you're looking at this from, hey, we came in with a game plan, played it out, and got 2 points. I think that's a apt description of today.
Yeah, if you can maybe get couple points here and there on the and then continue till still look for that goal of the top three pick, then you should be totally fine with that. Not getting like I mean, Team Tank is looking for loses as much as possible, staying at the bottom, but at the same time, getting those 1 or 2 points here and there won't hurt you so much. Just on how,
You're gonna lose 82 games in an NHL season. But I think if you're someone like me who Christine Merrill just saying that you don't want to hear the team tank talk all year long. I'm not saying the Flames need to play bad hockey. You can play exciting hockey. You can play games that are like the other night, 4-2 or 3-4 final. But I want them to be exciting. I want this Calgary Flames team to play a lot of youth. Um, and I think that there's a lot of people in this Flames fandom that are in agreement. We want to see guys like Zayne Parekh, Hunter Brustevich, Matvey Gridin, once he eventually decides that he doesn't just want to score goals for fun in the AHL. We want to see these guys get their opportunities with the big club. So it's not about necessarily the record this year, but we do need to finish in that bottom three, give us our best chances to continue to add talent to this team. But we want to see the opportunity for this team to grow in the future, not necessarily this year.
yeah, fair enough. And I just
And
increased my,
apparently you're hard to hear.
yeah, I just
So if you
increased my
boost your
mic
look.
volume. I was looking at the chat. Hopefully, everybody can hear me now. I'm also recovering from a small bug from traveling from Mexico. So I have a bit of coughs and here there. So I'm taking my voice easy. But at the same time, I increased my mic volume. So that should be better. But let's head on to our main point of conversation where we were planning to originally start, Conrad. And that is
You
Zane.
know what, Anand, just to
Yeah,
kind of reverse this, let's maybe talk about the Predators game first.
sure.
Because I think we need to use this as a chance to recognize the growth that happened between these two games. Because I was supposed to do the game last night, so I still watched the game, but had my eyes waiting on that timer for the Blue Jays game. The Flames really did only play one period of the game in Nashville. They allowed the Predators, who are a team that's in a very similar situation to the Flames have been in the last 5 years. They're in that mushy middle, no real team identity. But they allowed them to get off to a hot start, scoring those 3 goals in the first and had the Flames chasing. Was the first period good? No. Was the second period good? No. Was the third period probably one of the best 20 minutes of hockey the Flames have played all year? Potentially. But I think that kind of maybe the switch that flips in this team to have some belief in themselves. That we are still an NHL hockey team, that we can play good hockey when we choose to. And I think that really built into today's game.
Yeah, 100%. Like you said, the first and second periods of the Nashville game was like outblown. Like the Nashville Predators went 3-0. They went out by scoring, and then in the third period, um, the Flames came back to score two, but then it was little too late, and the Predators found it in an empty net. Today also same thing. They opened the scoring. They kept it at 2-0, but a few mistakes here and there, becoming a little bit more stressed or chaotic. Let the Philadelphia Flyers get one, but at the end became a win. So yeah, I agree with you. The Flames thing, they have a team to play with, although on paper they might not really be the best put together team, but they still have some assets or roster pieces that are credible NHL players, if you want to put it that way. So I agree with you, Conrad. Yeah.
Yeah, and we do have to also keep in mind that looking at advanced stats, this is also potentially the unluckiest team in hockey right now. Our shooting percentages are all way below sea level, below average from the rest of these players' NHL careers, junior careers for some of the younger guys. You have to believe that at some point things will start, the coin will start landing heads, for a lack of a better term. And as much as it's been a bit of a slog for you and I both, it still is a process for these Calgary Flames. Um, and yeah, I've been pretty down because I've had to take some of the harder losses when I've been here solo on this show. Um, but yeah, it's nice to see that the effort is starting to more closely reflect what we saw last year.
Yeah, especially these last couple games probably, but the week before is was tough to watch. I agree. Like Conrad, you had to do like couple tough losses. Maybe that's turning around in November. We'll see. I heard chatter around maybe November is where they turn it around. Maybe they become a team closer to 500% after solving things, but
And
we'll see how that goes.
and we have to remember, like, looking at the Flames schedule, it was one of the toughest schedules in the entire NHL going through that first month of the season. Some of the closest pack back to backs against difficult competition. Now, does that mean that you necessarily need to play like you have the hardest schedule? Not necessarily. But this also is a squad that seems a little bit emotionally fragile, so hopefully this is a little bit of an easier schedule through November, allows them to get some of their better vibes going, because I don't think Dustin Wolf is a below 900 save percentage goaltender in this league where we've seen his work rate through his entire career, which is what we were seeing through the first month of the season. I don't think Mackenzie Weegar and Rasmus Anderson are going to make some of the mistakes that we saw in that first month when they're not playing 6 games in 9 days or whatever. I think it's going to be a lot easier and a lot more fun to watch this team moving forward now that we've gotten out of that first kind of hell month of the season.
Yeah, starting from Edmonton on a back to back and then to Vancouver, then the back to back we just played. So hopefully there is a bit of gap, and there was hockey almost every night as well. Like I said, Conrad, you did multiple string of games. So fair point. We'll see how this team can gel together now. Not that the maybe
And
the
hey,
toughest
we
stretch.
have we have 2 days off as Calgary Flames fans before the next game. I don't know if we've consistently had a stretch where we're going 2 days where the Flames can take a travel day and a day off before returning and having an actual day of practice.
So tomorrow they might take a day off, and then Tuesday practice, and then Wednesday morning practice as well. We'll see if any line combinations change much more. So, with that note, let's talk about one of the biggest headlines, I guess. Zayne Parekh played his 10th game today, Conrad, where he was sad for the last couple of games, thinking about his future. I think Eric Francis was the one who brought it up that there was maybe debate, speculations going on if he was going to send back to the OHL, which many fans would agree that's not the right decision. There is not much improvement for him to be made in the OHL. Too bad he can't go to the AHL either. So keeping him in the NHL, and they decide to do that, and that's the right move, I think. Your thoughts on that, Conrad?
So there's a lot of talk about comparisons potentially to what the Seattle Kraken did in regards was it wasn't Matty Beniers. What's his name?
Shane Wright.
Their early draft pick. Yeah,
Shane
Shane
Wright.
Wright. Correct. Where you have to have him sit for those 5 games, and then he can go do that AHL conditioning stint, maybe build his confidence up that way, then make your evaluation on if you want to play that 10th game and burn that first year of his NHL contract. There was lots of talk about stuff like that, and I think it would be irresponsible to not have that talk and not have that be a consideration if you're Craig Conroy and the Calgary Flames front office. Obviously, we see Zayne Parekh play today, play that important game number 10, and burn that first year. Is it the right decision? We probably won't know for the next 3 years. But I saw lots of guys talking about how it affects potential contract values down the road. I think that's the wrong way to approach Zayne Parekh this year. I think you need to look at Zayne Parekh as not looking at what the first or the second NHL contract's going to look like, but how you're allowing this young man to progress in the NHL. So you have to remember, he's 19. Like, there's not many guys that make that jump at that level. Like, even Cale Makar, I think he was 20 when he made his debut in that series against the Calgary Flames. So there's not many guys that, especially defensemen, that are able to play at an NHL level immediately after their draft year. Zayne Parekh is proving that where there are obviously warts in his game. I can think of 2 giveaways in today's game. One led to that breakaway late in this first. But I think we're at a point where we need to accept that there are going to be growing pains for Zayne Parekh in his development. And I will eat my words. I said that maybe he needed to go down back to the OHL. I think that is false. I think we need to accept the fact that he is going to be a third/second liner for the rest of the year with this team. One of those guys that we see rotating in and out of the lineup. But it's a different rotation than guys like Jake Bean who sat today. Thank God. But it is part of his development as a young defenseman. And as harsh as I've been on Zayne Parekh, I know I have been. There have been, I think it was Tokay that had called me out for how harsh I was being on Zayne Parekh. But I think I and a lot of other fans, with seeing him not on the ice over the last 2 games, have realized, no, this is a worse team without the man wearing number 19. And we can accept those blemishes when and if they happen more steadily than we can accept seeing Jake Bean, Braden Pahal, no longer Daniil Maramanov as he's off in the land of the Wranglers and lighting it up. Possibly the best defenseman in the AHL right now, which is absolutely shocking. But yeah, just put him in that rotation of guys that you're kind of slotting in and out. And I think that allows him to understand and get up to pace and up to the level, even if we all wish that the AHL could accept a 19-year-old, but they won't because of the Canadian Hockey League.
Yeah, and like Matsy saying, like we can handle watching Parekh maybe making some mistakes because it reminds you how you grow yourself, make some mistakes, and then grow up to be a human being. So if you can watch young players make some mistakes, then you can coach them the right way and do that. But if it's like a batter making a mistake like Bean or Hanley or maybe Anderson or
Or
Viger, they sometimes cost a game. I don't think Zayne Parekh has costed a game just yet. And so if you don't want to watch it that way, keeping Parekh I think is right, absolute right decision, and keeping him up. I think the next mark they can evaluate is at the 40 game mark for Zayne Parekh. So we'll see how that goes, but I hope he stays with the big
well,
club.
I actually think there's a point before that, and that is a date that's only a month away. Can this Calgary Flames team be without Zayne Parekh for 2 weeks when the World Juniors happen? Is that a guy that you're willing to release to say, Team Canada, this is one of our key pieces, but we want to give him this opportunity to go and play and represent the flag that he's grown up around? So that, I think, is your next kind of inflection point in the career, the young career of Zayne Parekh. is whether Craig Conroy and the staff allow Zayne Parekh to go to the World Juniors, or if he's worked his way into an everyday NHL spot. And unfortunately, he doesn't get to represent Canada in the World Juniors.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes if he's able to represent in the World Juniors, if that's an option or route they go. And it will be interesting how the Flames handle, like you said. The November month could get interesting, but could it get worse without Zayne Parekh? We'll see. We'll find out. Time will tell. All right,
And
Conrad.
I can't remember, like, I know that Seattle didn't send Shane Wright to the World Juniors. Do we get a, like, attending international duty roster spot with Zayne Parekh going to the World Juniors? That's something I'm probably going to do some more research on. But that is something that also will determine if the Flames want to make that decision. Because as much as I want to say, Zayne, you get to go, it also would potentially mean exposing a player you don't want to expose to waivers if you have to call them up. Because I don't think Hunter Bruce Stevich needs waivers because he's kind of that next guy up on that right side, in my opinion. Um, but if he is, no, he's not waiver eligible. So you won't have to expose him to waivers. So if we do get that contractual relief from the 23 men that we're allowed to carry, I think that makes the decision pretty easy too.
Yeah, but will they do that? We'll see.
We got about a month before they even have to make that decision. So
So we'll save that topic for a later day. But Conrad, does Dustin Wolf need a break? I think Kohli has earned our trust. He showed it last night. I thought they will go with Kohli today, but then they proved us wrong. Your thoughts on does the Devin Kohli have he earned his trust, and Dustin Wolf needs a break?
so as I mentioned in our little discussion earlier, the Flames now have a much easier schedule, um, in terms of a schedule that is still condensed because of the NHL attending the Olympics this year. So I think that at some point you will see Devin Cooley back starting games for the Calgary Flames. When that is, I can't exactly put a finger on because you want to continue to see what Dustin Wolf is. Because Dustin Wolf was a face-off play away today from picking up his first shutout of the year. Call it what it is. Um, and now you're at least getting a couple days, or at least a day between games. Your next back-to-back isn't until the end of November, when the Flames take on the Stars at, I think that's at home. Yeah, that is at home for heading to Vancouver. So the 22nd, 23rd. I think you will see Devin Cooley get at least one start in there. The game that I kind of have circled in my mind is the November 11th, the Remembrance Day game against the St. Louis Blues. Blues are another team that has had some pretty wild struggles, considering they have Jordan Binnington, Canada's number one goaltender, as their starter. Well, he might not be by the time the Olympic break comes around. But you are going to have to see the backup for this team take some numbers. Are we going to see the games played approach anywhere near what Dan Vladar played last year? Not a chance. Also, we missed the potential Dan Vladar revenge game today. Like, glad that he didn't get the start for Philadelphia today, or I'd have to like change my whole background over there. Um, but yeah, I think Cooley has not only solidified earning another shot to get games to play, but I think the Flames need to, or Flames fandom maybe needs to stop thinking about picking up that backup goaltender. I know, friend of the show, James Johnson, has talked about that a little bit, where he feels that Cooley is giving the Flames as good a chance to win as anyone. And in my mind, he's no worse than what backed up Mika Kiprasov, obviously, and I'm talking a little before your time with this Calgary Flames team. But the last time we had a goaltender who had the skills of Dustin Wolf, we had a guy who a lot of people kind of labeled as that career backup who's not going to play a ton, Jamie McLennan, Noodles, and I think Cooley's at least settled himself into that level.
Yeah, Jimmy McKellar, I've heard that name on TSN and
Well,
Flames Nation, so. But yeah, way before my time, way before maybe I existed as well, so. Alright.
oh, don't make me sound that old. You wound me, Anand.
Sorry, Conrad. Had to make my point though.
Oh, totally. I understand.
Alright, I think that's what we had planned for our first period. Any other final thoughts you want to add, Conrad, before we do a quick game scoring summary, and then we'll talk about a flashback story maybe towards the end.
I think the only thing I had to say is the one fault I had in the game today was that the Flames were getting bullied physically. The Flyers, obviously, historically, the Broad Street bullies, are seeing a bit of a resurgence under this current management. And there were some hits that I think were borderline, didn't necessarily cross into being illegal hits, but that were borderline that didn't see a ton of pushback from this Flames group. Obviously, we've seen Ryan Lomberg toss the fists around a little bit early in the season. But I think the Flames, they've talked so much last year about how this team was buying in and standing up for each other. They might have lost that a little bit, and I would have maybe liked to see someone stand up to Travis Sanheim a little bit today.
Yeah, 100%. And I think there was one hit to the boards for Joel Hanley as well, which I thought didn't get called. And that was a missed opportunity. So, yeah, few calls, I guess, that went unmissed or didn't get noticed. So, and I think backline got rocked too, and didn't got a call as well. So that consistency was not there, which I guess we have been talking about all in our shows whenever we come as a duo. The consistency is not there. The game is changing. You don't usually get all the
And
calls
and,
that you were looking for.
and if the refs aren't going to make the call, sometimes the players step up. They elect to not step up today, not take the penalties. And you know what? It worked out for the Flames, so who am I to judge?
Yeah, that's a good point too. Alright, let's go to our second period, our game scoring summary, which we talked about. It was a slow start to the game. First period, so no scoring, 0-0. Then we go into second period. Jonathan Huberdeau, assisted by Braden Pahal and Igor Sharangovich, his third of the year. And that beauty of a snipe from near the face of circle. Conrad?
It's the release that you saw back when Jonathan Huberdeau was a Florida Panther. Um, I don't know if it was the change in the lines because we didn't really talk about that, but the Ryan Huska line blender was working in overdrive today as all three of the top three lines were thrown in the blender today. And maybe it's Ryan Huska telling Jonathan Huberdeau that he needs to shoot more so that Igor Sharangovich can see what it's like to actually take shots in the NHL. Um, yeah, just a beautiful shot. Good little half screen by Igor Sharangovich flying in front of the puck to kind of or hide the shot a little bit. But good for Jonathan Huberdeau, the power forward, sniper, all in one, whatever Kelly Rudy wants to say these days.
100%. And I think Jonathan Huberdeau has been one of the consistent best forwards coming back from that injury. So good on him. I think him and Joel Farabee has been one of the two best consistent forwards so far, especially if you want to look at the goals they have scored and how they've been scoring. So good on Jonathan Huberdeau. Then we move to the third period, just the only lone goal in the second period. Jonathan Huberdeau again. Thought it was Mackenzie Weegar for a moment, but Jonathan Huberdeau tips that in from a shot from Mackenzie Weegar. assisted by Mackenzie Weger and Joel Hanley. Man, that shot was so awesome. And then I didn't even see Jonathan Huberdeau tipping it until the broadcast replayed it. And that was Jonathan Huberdeau's second of the game, fourth of the season, assisted by Mackenzie Weger and Joel Hanley.
As we know, Flames don't win a ton of faceoffs. They did better at that today. So yeah, Frost wins it back. Hanley moves it quickly over to Weegar. And then you saw both Huberdeau and Morgan Frost crashing the front of the net, putting a ton of chaos in front of a young goaltender. As some fans may know, only recalled 2 days ago due to an injury, and then getting thrown in to a second game in as many days, because he did come in relief of Dan Vladar in the Flyers' last appearance. Yeah, chaos in front, and I actually was kind of surprised. I thought you could have seen that puck or the stick over the height of the crossbar video review. That didn't come, and it ends up as Jonathan Huberdeau's fourth goal of the season.
Yeah, 100% fourth goal of the season. And talking about relief, I'll just quickly point out for those who might have missed yesterday, but when the Philadelphia Flyers and the Toronto Maple Leafs played, Chris Tanner was hit onto the ice by Travis Kosekny. Is that how I want to pronounce? He
Connect
was.
me.
What's that again? I miss.
It was Konechny.
Konechny.
It's
All
it's
right.
a it's one of the tough.
Usually I nail on pronunciations, but this one is a bit tough. But he hit Chris Tanev. He was stretchered off the ice. Hopefully, sending good wishes and thoughts to former Flames legend Chris Tanev. I heard he was discharged from the Philadelphia hospital and back to Toronto, but sending him good vibes. And then the final goal for the Philadelphia Flyers comes from Kokekni, assisted by Cates. That goal, Conrad, didn't come off cleanly on the Sportsnet broadcast. They were coming from a media timeout or an advertisement. I missed parts of that, but they didn't fully cut it right on time.
Yeah, it was a little tough. Yeah, it seemed that the commentators weren't expecting that quick face-off play, but it's almost because we both are soccer, football fans, whatever we want to call it. It's almost like one of those goals off a free kick where the free kick taker just tips the ball and then you have your striker come in and smash it. It was almost like that off the face-off where it was just one weekly back and Travis Konechny steps in, snapshot, and it beats Wolf. I don't think Wolf was expecting the shot to come that quickly off the face-off draw, but a player that is quickly becoming. I posted this question in the chat here, but that he's almost a Tom Wilson like player where he is a bit of a pest and gets under your skin, but still has the ability to score goals.
Yeah, 100%. I don't know much about Kokekne, of course. But like you said, if you are comparing to Tom Wilson, I trust your judgment. And we have seen so many players in the NHL that don't score goals, but can become a pest at the same time. And yeah, so yeah, I agree with your point. We'll see what the chat thinks coming up here soon and over time. But that's how the game ends. Dustin Wolf almost had a shutout bid, but Kokotny ruined that right off that face off. Comes Dustin Wolf with a 9.44 save percentage, and then allied numbers for Kolosov as well, who came to become the starter tonight. 23 years old, young, 9.905 save percentage, and that's how the game ends. With the lack of scoring, of course, but the Flames get it done. And like we said at the beginning of the show, their first regulation road win in 4 games.
Yeah, and it's as I said, it's been a tough go for a lot of players. You've seen Connor Zary and Matt Coronado benched for, as I said, being some of the unluckiest players in the league. I thought both had bounce back games today, even though neither of them show up on the score sheet. Um, and you've seen Morgan Frost. Today was his first game listed as a center for the last little while. Um, and I think that's where you want to see Morgan Frost slated long term after his contract extension. Yeah, it's been a tough road for this Calgary Flames group, and I think they're finally starting to figure things out a little bit better. Even if I would like to see Kevin Ball playing with Zayne Parekh.
Yeah, that's I think everybody's hope too. They want to see Kevin Ball and Zayne Parekh. I think they had a great time during the preseason. At least a couple of games. Now we would like to see them together. I know they have that Indian chemistry too. Kevin Ball and origin, like I think his parents are originally from India. Zayne Parekh has some Indian connection. Can they find their chemistry together and play a game or two? I would like to see that as well. So great point there, Conrad. All right, let's go to. I know Conrad, you wanted to talk about a little small headline on Dustin Wolf mainly, and that is a little help from his friends. Big scrambled
Oh,
saves.
oh yeah. So we didn't talk about this in the second period because, as we said, there was not a lot of events to talk about. But there was that one period in around the last quarter of the second where there was one or two or three 10 bell saves made by Dustin Wolf. We also saw Mackenzie Weegar sprawled out. He had a couple bounce off his shin pads. I know they were joking on the broadcast that maybe they need to get him actual goalie pads if he's going to make stops like that. Um, you also saw um, Joel Farabee trying to get down and block shots at the same time. Nazem Kadri probably actually interfering with his own goaltender. But that's the kind of commitment we want to see from this Flames team moving forward. Getting back, doing the hard miles. Because to this point, the only team or the only line that had been doing this consistently was that fourth line when it was Costco, Ryan Lomberg, and Adam Klapka. But I thought it was really good work by the Flames assisting their young goaltender and not allowing the goal that would have put this to a one goal game and the would have potentially been a tie game a little bit further. But that's kind of like Doctor Strange. We don't know where that timeline would have gone if that puck had gone in.
Yeah, it would have. It was a little chaotic shift. Mackenzie Weegar toppled on top of Dustin Wolf. Looks like Dustin Wolf was all right after that huge chaos. Everybody was in front of the net. Had that gone in, it would have been certainly a different story. Maybe into overtime, maybe another shootout. Who knows? But like you said, Conrad, good job on the Flames covering, getting back in, and helping out Dustin Wolf. I know that topple wasn't great from Mackenzie Weegar either, but maybe he lost his balance and toppled in front of him. But especially Mackenzie Weegar, like a big guy, getting toppled on top of Dustin Wolf, a bit scary. But Dustin Wolf adjusted well right after that. All right, so we know a flashback story from this game. It always brings back memories when Farabee and Frost, we acquired Farabee and Frost to acquire, and we traded Pelchier Kuzmenko. I remember that night clearly, Conrad. It was January 30th. It was the last day of my practicum at Sportsnet 960. And I was at the studio working with the producer. They told that Kuzmenko was a healthy late scratch. We don't know what was happening. Then it was Pelche who got scratched, pardon me. And then we were seeing rumors from Frank Saravali that a trade was going down. And it was so fascinating to see what goes on behind sports media world on a trade day, and thanks to that I still remember that story. And we check in now how each of the trades have gone. So Pelche is in the AHL right now. He has played 9 games, 5 goals, 8 assists, 13 points with the Cyprus Crunch in the AHL, the affiliate team of, I believe, the Tampa Bay Lightning, and he's been crushing it really there. Kuzmenko is with the LA Kings. He has 13 goals, 13 games played, 3 goals, and 4 assists and 7 points. Haven't heard recently of Kuzmenko in the storyline, but I think he's quietly good. And then looking at Farabee, 13 games, 2 goals, 4 assists, 6 points. And then Morgan Frost, 13 goals, 13 games played, 2 goals, 5 assists, 7 points. So I think respectfully well, kind of equal trade. Both Frost and Farabee have coming around this season. Your thoughts, Conrad?
Yeah, it's been interesting. Because I didn't realize that or this might be the first year for Andrei Kuzmenko where he's actually positive since that first year, 2022, with the Vancouver Canucks, where he finished a +9. He's currently on track to be a +2 with Los Angeles, or that's where he's at currently. And last year with the Kings, ending the season with them, he was actually a so maybe he just kind of found his home. And he talked about how Jacob Pelletier is crushing it with the crush. Well done. My puns are rubbing off on you finally. But Pelletier was a player that I always thought was better than his numbers looked, but now he's kind of. I know there's a guy in this media market who goes by the name of Ryan Pinder. He calls a bunch of these guys that are too good for the AHL but not good enough for the NHLs that quadruple A guy. Jacob Pelletier is that guy, where he is too good for the AHL but not good enough to be an everyday NHL player. But you don't want him to stagnate and be eating popcorn and rotating in and out of the lineup. Is also how I kind of feel about Connor Zary for the Flames, but I digress on that point. It's a real interesting scenario, and I do still think it's maybe too early to call here with the results of that trade. But the Flames obviously think enough that they extended Morgan Frost in the offseason. And if we look at the Calgary Flames lines today, I do believe that technically that we're considering Joel Farabee on line number 1 for the Flames. And as I said, Morgan Frost returning to being a center on the second line, which is kind of why he was acquired, to be that second center behind Nazem Kadri, which really does kind of bring up a point that I got to in the last game that I hosted, which is where are the Flames in trouble after moving, or when they do move Nazem Kadri? Because we all know what's going to happen. The rumor mill has been running rampant for the last, let's call it 2.5 weeks. We all know Nazem Kadri is likely to be moved. After this 1,000 game ceremony, congratulations, Naz, playing in his 1,000th game on Wednesday when Columbus comes to town. It is going to be interesting to see what kind of a player Morgan Frost is when he might be relied upon to play 19 minutes a night and take more offensive zone draws if there isn't a center included in the deal that Nazem Kadri is eventually a part of. Because I didn't look at his face-off win percentage today yet. I didn't look at anyone's face-off win percentage yet, but I'll actually pull that up because the Flames actually were in the advantage in that category today, winning 52.6% of the draws. And if we go up to Morgan Frost, 44.4%. Not my favorite to see him below 50% if you're going to have him be in that second line role for the foreseeable future for this Flame squad. But good enough for him to continue to stay in that center spot for now. Of course, you think if he gets some more reps at the NHL level, still a young enough guy, you're going to see some of that develop. But it's going to certainly help. And hey, I'm now over on Money Puck, and Morgan Frost, expected goal 0.17 for a team that has really really struggled to produce anything in the offensive zone, you'll take that from Morgan Frost every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think Morgan Frost, like we have told since the beginning of the program, he has been really consistent, and he might be one of the top candidates to maybe replace Nazim Kadri and play those top minutes. We'll find out if that's the case, if and when that 1,000 game gets done. Uh, Conrad, I know you talked about you were potentially planning to go to that 1,000th game. It's going to be an emotional one, and as well, maybe there is because of course Johnny Gaudreau, and then maybe there is some kind of special ceremony for Nazim Kadri as well. So we'll find out if that does. Any final points for the third period, Conrad, before we move to our open chat, open segment?
Just to go back to a point to talk about the view from the other side, the identity of teams playing in Philadelphia has always been the Broad Street Bullies when it comes to the orange, black, and white of the Flyers. And we're starting to see that identity make its return. This is a big, strong, physical squad, but still quite a lot of goal scoring potential. And you're obviously seeing the coaching change away from John Tortorella, who you think would be the ideal coach to coach that style, but it seemed to go wrong almost immediately, if you're asking me. So good on the Philadelphia Flyers for eventually finding a way to build back into that identity, draw in the fan base that loves that kind of team. Tocchet has built this style after being ousted in the Vancouver Canucks organization. Philadelphia is a hardworking town. You can see it with their love of the Eagles, who are the working man's team. You can see it in MLS. The Union are a tough, hard team to face. And the return of this Broad Street Bullies identity, with the exception of Trevor Zegras, who I always was kind of like, why did you pick him up? Because he's kind of the exact opposite of that. But even saw some physicality out of him today. I think it is really going to be an interesting view watching this Flyers team as it continues to develop.
Yeah, 100%. We'll see. Even the Calgary Flames, how they develop into the next couple of years, especially when the new Scotia place opens up, will be interesting. And it's an interesting way to look at. I think
Gavin McKenna. Gavin McKenna. Gavin McKenna. That's how they're going to develop.
we'll find out. Hopefully, the hockey gods give us something this year that we desperately need, a top elite talent. The Flames already have the pieces for it. Hopefully, they just need that one more, or maybe even two more. Maybe one of Gavin McKenna and one of somebody else in the top, and then we are, I think, set for the Scotia Place opening.
I thought you were gonna think. I thought you were gonna say they needed to tank for another year for Landon Dupont, and I was gonna be all over that. Two guys that have links to the Calgary area coming back home to rebuild the Calgary Flames, or the Flames could work a trade to send I don't know, Uyghur or not Uyghur, Rasmus and pieces to some team that plays in Utah. Get some guy with the last name Aginla. Like, there's lots of things that we could see happening here in the land of Flames.
Yeah, 100%. Um, yeah, we just need to be lucky, and we just need to, I guess, turn out for the better. All right, we'll head into final period and overtime. Let's look at the chats. I know I've been a bit laggy because my OBS keeps dropping frames, but we'll close it out shortly here so that we don't crash the stream. So we'll start with Matsy, who says against the absolute top teams, we are no chance. Against the rest, we are 50-50. Good win. Take them where we can get them this year. Yeah, 100%. Like top teams, we saw them win against Edmonton, which I think should be good for the ethical wise. But then after that, against like Vegas, we got crushed. Of course, not having that elite talent. Um, Tokai numbers one says can't stop Huberdeau. Yeah, I think he's been one of the great consistent players this season, including Joel Farabee. Tokai number says someone tell him we are going for McKenna. Of course, we are going for McKenna.
And just before you go on and
Yeah,
end, Toke, I'm leaning off to the side. You can't see me right now because I'm talking right into the mic. We finally scratched Jake Bean, proving that this organization no longer has links to John Bean and his family. The curse has been lifted. The scroll has been broken. It can happen.
yeah, I was surprised that Jake Bean would come out. I was gonna guess like a Braden Pahal that was gonna come out instead of Jake Bean, but once I saw Jake Bean
Hey,
today,
the Flames' two best performances recently have come with Braden Pahal in the lineup. I don't say that correlation and causation and all that jazz, but it is true. The performance against Nashville, best 20 minutes we've seen with Braden Pahal in the lineup. In this game, admittedly, kind of a snooze fest, but one of 3 wins we've had on the season. Just saying.
but sometimes best performance is not the way we see things as well. Like for example, Connor Zary had one game great at center, but then he got scratched right away the next game. So I wasn't expecting that, but I agree with your point. Christian Merrill says, "Oh no, I don't think I can handle Team Tank Talk all year." I mean, yeah, of course, it's gonna get tough, it's gonna get difficult, but just ride with the team, just support it. Of course, we do realize we do need that elite piece, and tanking might be the one way we get it. Um, Chris Merrill, you can see the positives in ranking low and getting draft picks without being negative all year. It can still be fun to watch people get points. Want to keep the morale up. Yeah, that's certainly like you can't lose every game. You don't want to lose every game, but if you get one or two wins here and there, but continue to be the player individually. Let's say, for example, on a game night, if Coronato Zary Hanze gets a point, but then you end up losing, maybe that's a good morale. Just saying, like, especially if you need elite talent, you need to be fine with being near the bottom. But at the same time, if you're individual rookies like Coronato Zary, like I just mentioned, if they can add some points to the tally, then that's with the morale. Young players are competing and playing, but at the same time, you're looking for in search for that high draft pick.
Yeah, and as I said, you can still play a fun brand of hockey, no matter how much Ryan Huska may try to stifle that. You can still play a fun brand of hockey, be bad for a little while, understand that it is likely to end up in a poor draft pick. You can still have fun and play enjoyable games for your fan base to watch. We've seen that in Montreal, and now we're seeing them be one of the best teams in the East. We've seen that with Edmonton after the decade of darkness eventually led them to Connor McDavid. Like, there is ways to figure this out, and we don't necessarily need the full, as I said, decade of darkness a la Edmonton to get to that goal.
Yeah, 100%. And then we talked about Banksy's point already. We can watch Parekh having growing pains, but can't handle being unhandly, 100%. And sadly, Conrad, no responses for your question. At least I don't see it on my end. Do you see anything on your end?
Yeah, I don't see anything on my end, and I'll ask it here in chat. Because if you're watching this in the VOD, we're trying to monitor our comments a little bit more. Write in chat. What are your thoughts on Travis Konechny? I know he's not a Flame, but he was certainly effective in today's game, as you mentioned, injuring former Flame in the Toronto game. What are your thoughts on Travis Konechny? Is he kind of one of those Tom Wilson types? And is that something that is necessarily kind of becoming more important because we see that in Florida with a certain former Calgary Flame who wore number 19 and now has 2 Stanley Cup rings. We've seen it with a certain former Calgary Flame who's also playing in Florida but is a center and takes way too many stick infraction minors. Of course, talking about Sam Bennett. Is this kind of the type of player that teams need to ensure that they have one of on their roster to remain competitive in the style of the NHL that is going on there?
Probably because nowadays you see the game become more physicality, more hitting, more speed, and maybe you need to be sometimes maybe not an overly eager pest, but at least a partly being pest, like maybe just irritating a player too. That can be beneficial for your team, but not drawing the big attention of the club, but doing it maybe small basis. I think that's the way how players should play these days.
But I think that's a good point to wrap it up here, Anand.
All right, that will do it for us. So next game for the Flames, like we said, are surprisingly 2 days off. Uh, I'm guessing they travel tonight itself. They come back tomorrow, day off tomorrow, and then maybe Tuesday they'll get a skate in. We'll know what Tuesday skate looks like. Then we play Wednesday the Columbus Blue Jackets. Conrad, have fun at the game. Hopefully it's a decent game, an emotional one. Hopefully maybe you pack some napkins with you to take or Kleenex with you. Um, just in case if there are any more special ceremonies for Johnny Gaudreau and his legacy. And then so that is a home game. That's a 7:30 p.m. puck drop, so later than what we started today. And then they have another day off, and then they host the Chicago Blackhawks on November 7th. So that's your next week looking like for the Calgary Flames.
And before we go, just a little bit of a shout out to one of Calgary's other teams. Of course, everybody that knows me knows I'm a huge Cavalry FC fan, and Cavalry FC defeat their nemesis, Forge FC of Hamilton, to advance to the Canadian Premier League playoffs final. So big shout out to our friends over at Cavalry FC. Go a championship for the city of Calgary for the second straight year.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Conrad. They won 1-0 this evening, correct?
1-0, a fantastic goal by our German striker Tobias Warshevsky was the decider.
All right, and I think that's a good way to wrap it up. Thank you so much, Conrad, for joining me. Have fun at the Wednesday game, and we'll see you all again on Wednesday right here on Game Over Calgary. On behalf of Conrad and myself, Anand, take care. Have a great rest of your new week coming up. Thanks for watching.